Starting to heat up, ladies and gentlemen, and one of the most creative scores in the W.
Overall selection in the 2023 NHL Draft. The Chicago Blackhawks are very proud to select from the Regina Pats, the Western Hockey League, Connor
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you are listening to Mike on the Mic, and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. We're back at it. And again, obviously, I still kind of lost my voice. I lost it a few days ago, but we're trying our best to get back at it and have just great conversations. You know, we're just a few days away. Really, it feels like a few days away. Really, it's a couple weeks, but to me, it's a few days because that's when everything starts heating up. But we're just a couple weeks away from the MLB trade deadline of 2023. And yet again, the Chicago Cubs, for a third straight year, are likely going to be sellers. And that's to come to the surprise of nobody. You know what I mean? Like, this is a conversation that we've been mentally prepared for the entirety of this season. We knew that at the end of the day, if we were contenders, that was cool, you know, but you really do need to take into consideration that Jed is always going to have a plan. Jed is always going to be in a situation where he knows what he wants. He knows what he wants, and he knows what he wants to do. And I think it's going to be very important throughout the next couple of days. What version of Jed Hoyer are you going to see talking to the media? And that's something that I think at the end of the day is very reluctant. And I think, you know, he's one of those guys who he's very open about, you know, what he wants to do. The last couple of years, he's been very open. He's been transparent, damn near, that, hey, Wilson, we're not trying to extend you at this point. You know what I mean? Hey, Chris, Javi, Riz, we're not at that point right now with what we want to do. Hayward, we'll pay you more just to get out of here. You know what I mean? And this season's been kind of tricky because, you know, Marcus Stroman goes out publicly and says, you know, how much he wants to be here and how much he wants to stay. And Cody Bellinger has as well. And, you know, you haven't heard anything from Jed, just kind of that we're going to see where we're at the deadline or right before the deadline. And obviously the Cubs lost game 1 to the Nationals in a horrible fashion, but then put up NFL type numbers, even more than NFL type numbers, because the Bears couldn't even put those numbers up against the Commanders against Washington. And the Cubs won last night 17-3. You know, an amazing performance by Patrick Wisdom. He's starting to get hot again. But obviously we know what comes with that. There's going to be times where he's striking out 40% of the time. There's going to be times where he's hitting 3 home runs a day. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens. I'm really intrigued to see what could potentially come of this. Obviously, to me, it's the best time of the year. You know, as a baseball fan, you start to see the teams that they go from kind of middle of the pack to serious contenders, or some go from contenders to rebuilders. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the future of this team holds. And I'm curious to see how we go about it. I really am. I think it's going to be really important within the next couple of days to see where everybody's at. Tonight could potentially be Kyle Hendricks' last start in Wrigley Field as a Chicago Cub. So that's going to be really interesting. I think, you know, there's so many feel-good stories with this team, and there's so many players that, you know, you want to be a part of this organization. You know, a guy like Trey Mancini, you know, he beats cancer. He's an amazing teammate. You want a guy like that to succeed here, but the reality is sometimes guys just aren't playing well, and you have to do what you have to do for the better of this organization. Even when guys are playing well, sometimes you have to do what's best for the organization, and that might be trading him at this point. Today, we're going to be breaking down, obviously, episode 1. We're going to be doing this all the way down to the trade deadline, seeing where I think everybody should go and what they're potentially worth. Now, obviously, we could see Marcus Stroman go to the Los Angeles Dodgers, the New York Mets, the Houston Astros, the Texas Rangers, the San Diego Padres, even the Cincinnati Reds. I was just talking to my guy Chris Gonzo at the ASAP Network yesterday about it. You can check him out at Gonzo Sports. Him and his dad Tony do an amazing show. They're amazing at what they do. GSR, Gonzo Sports Room. Definitely check it out on YouTube. But we talked about how even the Reds could potentially be in on a guy like Marcus Stroman. But the team that I want to talk about today, and somebody said in the comments, what do you think about the trade deadline? I think when you look at Marcus Stroman and what this team could potentially become, the team that I'm about to name is a team that just hasn't been able to get over the hump. They haven't been able to get back to the World Series. Obviously, the last time they made the World Series, it was a little premature with Cashman. Obviously, Blake Snell and company were still at the helm, and you're starting to see a completely different team. They have one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, currently sitting at 60-38, first in the AL East, the Tampa Bay Rays. I think the Tampa Bay Rays are a perfect situation for Marcus Stroman right now. You saw it, obviously, if you're tuning into this episode. The picture and the Photoshop I made of Marcus Stroman. Obviously, that's Wander Franco in front of him, but I think it looks pretty solid. I think it looks pretty solid. You guys can let me know if it's a horrible Photoshop. His neck's a little weird on the side, but I think it was really good all in all. But I think Marcus Stroman to the Tampa Bay Rays is probably the best situation, not only for Marcus Stroman, because, like I said, these guys have the best pitching staff in all of baseball. They take average to amateur guys and they make them the best versions of themselves. They create all-stars and all-star caliber players. They will take the best parts of you that no team could kind of put together and really just relinquish that part of you that, hey, listen, I know this is what you like to do, but I think you should just maybe to a slider, move a couple inches to the left, maybe move a couple inches to the right, maybe throw a tick faster in your velocity, maybe throw a tick down. You know, it's something that it's the little things that they're so good at manipulating and they're so good at disguising. And I think that's going to be really important moving forward for a guy like Marcus Stroman, who from April to June, the end of June, not the beginning of June, the end of June, had a 2.47 ERA. Obviously, he had a couple rough starts. In July, he had a great one against Boston. I was there for that. The belly bomb grand slam. It was amazing. 6 great innings from Marcus Stroman. But right now, currently sitting at a 2.88 ERA, Marcus Stroman's playing great ball. Marcus Stroman's playing great ball throughout 118 and a half innings so far. I believe it's 118.3 if I'm not mistaken. Over 14 quality starts so far in the year. He is showing that he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is one of the best pitchers in the National League. If not him, Justin Steele, without a doubt, is one of those guys as well. It's 1A and 1B between those two. And I think when you look at that, you look at the Tampa Bay Rays organization, obviously Shane McClanahan, obviously Tyler Glasnow. They have a great 1-2 punch when those two guys are healthy. But to have a true ace, a guy who, in my personal opinion, is one of the best, from a pitching perspective, one of the best athletes in all of baseball from a pitching perspective. Like, you hear a lot of pitchers talk about, oh, when I was in high school, I used to play shortstop. Oh, I used to play center field. Like, and for more times than not, it's just blowing smoke up somebody's ass. You know what I mean? Like, you were on a high school level, sure, but Marcus Stroman is an athlete first, and he's so versatile and he's so electrifying. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see how he could potentially transition with a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, who are, again, first in the AL East. Obviously, Brandon Hyde, former bench coach and current manager of the Baltimore Orioles, 2016 World Series champion with the Chicago Cubs, is managing guys like Gunnar and Adley, who are currently at, I believe, 57 or 58 wins. So they're right behind him. Obviously, the Yankees are 10 games back in last place, but let's be real. If the Yankees are in on a guy like Shohei Ohtani at the deadline, Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger, or somebody like that, and they get Aaron Judge back with Carlos Rodon back on the mound, Garrett Cole fully healthy, and Severino playing his best ball as of late, you know, you're really looking at a team that could be dangerous. So I wouldn't count them out either. So I think the Rays definitely do have to do something. We know they have an issue with extending players. They're not great at it. Wander Franco is really one of those first guys that they've locked up for years on end. A guy like Tyler Glasnow as well. But, you know, outside of that, they've let a lot of guys come and go throughout this. So to pick up a guy like Marcus Stroman, I think that's the best scenario for them. You know, they really get an ace. They really get a guy who you don't have to worry about paying him. You don't have to worry about what could potentially be at the end of the season. You can just let him go if you want to let him go and go on a championship run this season, which I think they're somewhat ready to do. Remember, these were one of the best teams in baseball at the beginning of the season. So undefeated for how long? I believe they started the year, 10-0? It was insane. But they're still on their hot streak, man. They have an amazing offense. I feel like a great pitching rotation, but it could always be better. And I think that's something that they're really looking for right now. I think it's going to be interesting. And why this is beneficial for the Chicago Cubs why I think this is important is because of what Marcus Stroman said the other day. I do want to play it really quickly. Pay attention to the last sentence. Pay attention to the last sentence. Obviously, if you're watching this on TikTok or somewhere else, I'm going to play the audio. But what's important to me is the ending. Obviously, what the media is going to post is that he wants to stay here, that he doesn't want to leave. But what I heard was, even if I'm traded, I would like the Cubs to be, quote, in the mix during the offseason to potentially re-sign him. So here's the interview by Marcus Stroman in a press conference. I believe this was after the Boston start. It's a really good listen. It's about 42 seconds if you guys have the time for it. I really love it. So here it is.
I know Belly wants to stay. You know what I mean? I know I would love to stay here, but a lot of that's out of our control. So at the end of the day, it's a business, so we have to treat it as such. Even though we have this love for this fan base and this organization, it's hard to kind of separate it at times. But yeah, I love being a Cub. I love everything about it. But, someone who's been through it before, it's something you kind of have to distance yourself a bit because a lot of it's out of your control. And no matter how much I love it, I can wake up tomorrow and be gone. So it's tough, but love everything about the city of Chicago and this organization. And no matter what happens, I would hope that they would be in the mix in the offseason when it comes to my free agency.
With that right there, I think you could hear it from him. You could hear it from him. You can have those conversations, and you could really say, like, he wants to fucking be here, man. And part of my language, but I think he wants to be here. And you hear guys say it all the time: Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, Schwarber, like how much they want to stay a Chicago Cub. But I truly feel it with Marcus. I felt it with Wilson. Obviously guys like Riz, you feel that. Javi was kind of like one of those, whatever happens, happens. Chris was kind of one of those, whatever happens, happens. But I'm really intrigued by that final statement of, even if they trade me, I want them to be in the mix for me to come back in the 2024 season and beyond, and that's really where I'm at right now. We're going to talk about what the Chicago Cubs would get in return for a guy like Marcus Stroman, somebody that I've been following for a very long time. Obviously, if you've been watching minor league baseball, this kid is climbing the ranks. So when I look at a guy like Marcus Stroman and I look at it how I see, obviously the Gleyber Torres, Aroldis Chapman trade of 2016, I could look at him and say, listen, we love you. We want you to be a part of this organization. And the only way to do that at a successful level, winning more baseball games than not, going into 2024, let's say we get a top prospect from the Tampa Bay Rays, who we're going to get into right after this, I promise. I'm very excited about it. I'm geeked, actually. Talking about that, having a guy like him come in, having PCA, a P. Crow Armstrong, a Kevin Alcantara, a Matt Mervis, a Jordan Wicks, a Ben Brown, a Cade Horton, these kind of guys, Alexander Canario, we can do this all day. Guys who you believe could potentially be ready, a Ryan Jensen of the world. You're going to have, and not only that, but the free agents that you're going to bring in as well. Guys like that coming up, it's going to help him moving forward. And if you just run this same team back and bank on a bunch of other prospects, it's not going to go well. With the New York Yankees in 2016, you looked at Aroldis Chapman and you said, listen, we're going to give you an opportunity to go win a World Series. Go win a World Series with the Chicago Cubs. We're going to get a top shortstop prospect in Gleyber Torres, who from 2016 on has still been a part of that organization and is still in an everyday lineup right now. Obviously, he's not a superstar, but he definitely is a significant part of this team. And you look at that and I say, listen, we want to get better. We want to give you an opportunity to win games here. So let's send you to Tampa. Let's send you to Texas or Los Angeles or San Diego or the Cardinals, not the Cardinals, but you know what I mean? Like anywhere to go compete for a championship. The Cincinnati Reds is the team I was thinking of. It's definitely something to where, you can say, we're going to give you a shot to win a title and then come back and we're going to run it back. Just like with Aroldis Chapman and Gleyber Torres becoming teammates in New York in 2017. They go to multiple ALCSs after that. They couldn't get over the hump, but in hindsight, it worked. You know what I mean? It worked. Chapman was there for so much longer than that. I believe last year was the last year he was on the team. So he went from being there from 2017 on after that. So I'm completely okay with that. Get Paul Skeens. Yeah, that's not happening. That is definitely not happening. Paul Skeens is a dog. But yeah, with that being said, who do the Chicago Cubs get for a guy like Marcus Stroman? I'm a big fan of third baseman, 22-year-old, born in 2000, from the same year. He's in October, baby. I believe October 26. Currently in AAA. Curtis Mead. Curtis Mead is an absolute stud. He's 32nd ranked in all of the MLB prospects pipeline, and he's top 3 in the Rays organization as of this moment. And he's only the second top prospect at the third base position for the Tampa Bay Rays, which is why I think this is so important. When you look at the Tampa Bay Rays organization right now, their infield is stacked. And it's something that I don't think is going to change anytime soon. They have a solidified roster. They have a roster that they're very happy with, all the way from Wander Franco to everybody else at the third base position in the hot corner. And it's something that I think really does hurt Curtis in a way, because their number 1 overall prospect, pardon me if I butcher his name, by the way, it's Junior Caminero, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Junior Caminero. He's in AA right now. He's 20 years of age. He's only 2 years younger than Kurt. He's 6'1", 157. He bats righty, throws righty. Obviously, Curtis is 6 foot, 171, throws righty, bats righty. That's something for me that, when you look at the number 1 overall prospect in your pipeline, kind of similar with Brendan Davis and Pete Crow Armstrong right now. You understand that Brendan Davis is a hell of a talent. You understand that, Kevin Alcantara is a hell of a talent, but PCA is in front of all of them. So you could look at those guys, those other guys, Alexander Canario, et cetera, Nelson Velasquez, as bargaining chips. Now, when you have a guy who's already top 32 in the entirety of the MLB in the pipeline, and then you have a guy who's ahead of him, obviously at the same level, it's going to be very difficult to find both of those guys on the field at the same time. And it's something that I don't think they would want to deal with. So if you can get a guy like Marcus Stroman for him, I think it would insanely benefit the Chicago Cubs. Now, obviously, our buddy, he's been on the show before, James Triantos, he's in AA for the Cubs right now at the third base position. I think he's great. He's only 19 years old. You know what I mean? Like, I can't sit here and wait 4 or 5 years to bring in a third baseman when Patrick Wisdom, as great as he's been the last few days, is striking out 35% of the time. You know what I mean? Nick Madrigal, who's my height, you know what I mean, at 5'8", not traditionally playing third base, is playing third base. He has to run to be able to get that kind of velocity off his arm to be able to make a play at third base to first. A guy like Christopher Morel, who, as much as we want to see him there, obviously the front office and David Ross are kind of hesitant to do so. And, I'm no idiot. I understand that they probably know a lot more than I am, a lot more than I do. I watch these guys their entire careers in the minors, and that's cool. But these guys see these guys every day. So if you don't think he can handle it at a major league level, then okay, like, we'll have those conversations. But Curtis Mead is one of those guys that you could look at and say, I think he's going to have an amazing career in the MLB. He has amazing pop to his bat. He has amazing decision-making defensively. He reads it off the bat very well. Career-wise in the minors, from rookie ball in 2019 all the way to now. And obviously the COVID year kind of messed a little things up, but to get that into the grand scheme of things, in his career in the minors so far in Major League Baseball, he has a .303 batting average with 35 home runs, 165 RBIs, and 24 stolen bases. In 2023 in AAA so far, he's batting .286 on the year with 3 home runs, 27 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, and an OPS of obviously 805. The kid slugs over 500 consistently, and he's somebody that I think you could look at and say he could be the guy in the hot corner as soon as August. Honestly, as soon as August 2nd, when he comes in the Chicago Cubs organization, if that were to happen, I think he would be an immediate impact. He'd be a guy that we would bring up right away. Obviously, I think you would either... Man, it's tricky. You would either bring down Nick Madrigal, or you bring down a guy like Patrick Wisdom, or DFA one of them. But the problem with that, or trade one of them. But the problem with that is obviously Patrick, just for the first time in his career, hit the hardest hit baseball he's ever hit at, I believe, 114 or 118 miles per hour yesterday. He's probably the strongest bat we have in the majors right now, next to Christopher Morel. So it would be tough to lose a guy like that. But again, if you're striking out 37% of the time, I really don't care how hard you hit the ball. Like, I can't start you every day. But Curtis Mead is a guy who gets on base a lot. He takes his walks. He's very patient. He can run the bases. He's a great defensive third baseman. And obviously, contact is everything for this team. And he brings some power to it as well, which is what we desperately lack. We already have the contact. You know what I mean? We get guys on base. Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, Cody Bellinger, Mike Talkman. Like, we get these guys. And Mike Talkman and Cody might not be on the team by this. So it's also important if we were to trade those two, bringing in another bat who can get on base, and Curtis, who I think is going to be very important. Curtis Mead, to me, is probably the guy that I would want to go after. Obviously, like I said earlier, the Tampa Bay Rays organization, especially currently right now in the majors, have a set infield. They're great in the hot corner. They're great at short. They're great at second. They're killing it at first. they're doing it. You know what I mean? They're doing it. So Curtis is kind of the odd man out, especially because the next man up isn't even him. You know what I mean? The next man up is going to be Junior. How do you say his name? I'm sorry, I forgot it. We're not talking about him. Caminero. I think it's definitely something that, you know, you look at him, Caminero, and how he's going to moving forward. It's just not beneficial. It's not beneficial for Curtis to stay in there, to wait that out, and probably to end up not even playing the position he grew up playing. Obviously, it says he's a mix between second baseman and a third baseman. Obviously, right now they have him at second base. And I think there's a good reason for that, is because they want to mold him into being something else, into being a part of this roster. So, you know, fuck that. Like, let us take him. You can have Marcus Stroman. You could have a big 3 rotation of Marcus Stroman, Shane McClanahan, and obviously Tyler Glasnow, and you can go on a championship run, especially with, hey, let's say the New York Yankees don't end up getting a guy like Shohei Ohtani and they miss the playoffs. The Houston Astros haven't looked great so far this year. Aaron Judge might not come back. You know, the Baltimore Orioles, the Blue Jays, you know, so many other teams are very inexperienced when it comes to the playoffs. This is a very experienced team who's been to the playoffs in the last several years, who's been to the World Series in the last several years. You know, you have to look at that and say, this is kind of your moment, kind of like the Phillies last year. You know, when the Dodgers fell off and the Padres fell off, they said, wow, it's kind of open season between us and the Braves. And I think that's definitely something that they need to take into consideration right now. And it could really benefit the Chicago Cubs moving forward. If you can go into 2024, let's say you bring back Marcus Stroman. You bring back Marcus Stroman, you bring up Curtis Mead, you bring up Matt Mervis, you bring up Ben Brown, Jordan Wicks, Pete Crow Armstrong, you bring up all these guys. Then you bring in some free agents on top of that. And man, we got ourselves a movie. We got ourselves a 2015 Chicago Cubs roster just right before our eyes. Obviously, you already have guys like Dansby Swanson, Miguel Amaya, Nico Horner, Ian Happ, and so many others. So you look at that and you say, I think we're in a good place right now. You know, obviously you still have Justin Steele. You're going to bring back Marcus Stroman potentially. Hayden Wesneski, Caleb Killian. Can they figure it out? You know, you're going to be in a very interesting spot in spring training 2024. So that's really what I'm looking at right now. I think Curtis Mead would be an amazing price for a guy like Marcus Stroman. And honestly, the kid is so talented and the kid is so great. I really do think I would be willing to throw in a guy like Mark Leiter Jr. for a guy like him. If you want Stroman and Mark Leiter Jr. or Stroman and Michael Fulmer or Julian Merriweather, whatever that case may be, just another bullpen arm to really sweeten that deal, to show them like, hey, listen, we know how you value this guy, Curtis, and I know you value him at a very high level, but let's try to get something. Let's work something here. Like, we'll also give you Mark Leiter, who's going to be on the roster for the next couple of years. So I'm interested. I'm fully interested in this. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Obviously, we're going to be doing this all trade deadline long, I guess you could say, from now to obviously August 1st at like 5 p.m. It's going to be exciting. So this was my first one today. I believe Marcus Stroman is going to be traded to the Tampa Bay Rays out of all teams. I've heard other teams are interested, but I think this is a team that, in my opinion, is going to be the most interested and a sneaky team that you wouldn't expect. Curtis Mead is obviously the guy I would want a part of this organization who can make an immediate impact to this team. Tomorrow we're probably likely going to, or I don't know if I'll do this tomorrow or every other day just to kind of like get it out there. I'm going to try to hit on Cody Bellinger. We're going to do Belly Bomb, obviously Stro Show. Kyle Hendricks tonight is, again, I want to make this a point. If you are going to the Cubs game tonight, definitely enjoy it. Could potentially be Kyle Hendricks' last start as a Chicago Cub at Wrigley Field. Definitely enjoy that. Definitely try to make that worthwhile for him. Truly deserves it. Truly deserves it. The professor has done so much for this city, so much for this organization. And no matter what happens, it's always going to be all love with us and Kyle. And I'm very excited about it. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening. If you're new here, smack that follow button. It definitely does help me out a lot. You can follow me on all social medias at theshy.kid on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. If you haven't already, you can see me on Facebook at Mike Hughes, or go on YouTube right now. You can check out Mike on the Mic podcast. If you type in Mike on the Mic podcast, Justin Fields or Chicago Cubs or Chicago Bulls, you'll likely see me. Sorry, the live pause for a second, but you'll likely see me. And I'm really excited about it, man. I'm really excited about it. I'm pumped. I think this is going to be really dope. So until then, I'll check you guys out on the next one. I appreciate you guys for tuning in on Mike on the Mic on the All Sports, All Plays Network. Till next time, peace.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.